Topic is 5 ways what we are putting in our mouth is harming the environment. So I would have to start saying that no one has taught us how to eat. Now, technology has gone a long way, and so does have food technology. And we have a lot of choices right now. And we don't know what and how and why to eat those choices. Like we were hearing all the time, eat these, mostly because somebody recommends it or we see an advertisement. So food technology has gone a long way. And now, because of that, we have what's called edible products. It's not food, it's edible products. And with those edible products, we have damaged the environment. Because, and the result is that when you try, even if you try to be or to have a very healthy diet, if the planet is not healthy, you're not gonna make it. So it's urgent for us to start making choices, new choices, thinking about, planet's health, our well-being, but also have the compassion to think about future generations, because we owe our children a beautiful and healthy planet. So these are the 5 ways what we're putting in our mouth is ruining or harming the environment. And I based this on a book I wrote last year, and right now it's being translated and it's going to be called Healthy Planet, Healthy You. So everything I put in here, you find it in my book. So the first thing is, I read a quote from Osho that I really love, is intelligence only grows when it has to find answers itself. So the only way to grow our intelligence is to let ourselves, our mind, to find the answers. And right now, we're just repeating what everybody else is doing. The thing is that we don't take our own decisions. We have some cognitive biases, as Tim says in LMA and also in SMA. We have some cognitive biases, and we're actually not thinking about our decisions. And one of those cognitive biases, which I love, is the bandwagon effect, which is that we do, say, or act as somebody we trust says, or acts, right? We're just like copying and doing, we're doing the same things as the people we trust are doing. So we think also that we are separated because we see this body, but deep down we know that we are connected in some way. But in this confusion, we start being like carbon copies of other people. And we're carbon copies of other people because we're trying to fit, or we're trying to belong or to be part of something. So we're kind of confused because we think we're separated, but we deep down know that we are all connected. So we usually eat based on what's better advertised to us or what other people are doing. So nobody taught us what to eat, but we're not using our intelligence to make our choices. That's number 1. Number 2 is that we're eating a diet highly based in animal protein, because somebody told us that we need to eat protein to be healthy, right? So when we think about protein, we think about animals. And many people eat at least 3 portions of animal products every day. And to supply that increasing demand, the only way is to have what's called industrial farming, and also called CAFO, which means concentrated animal feeding operations, which means that you have in a very little space around 1,000 animal units, which is translated in animals, it's like around 1,000 cows, 2,500 pigs, 182,000 chickens when it's for meat, more or less 82,000 chickens when they're used for hens, when they're used for eggs, which is they're confined in a very, very little space with concrete floors. And you know, when you have that amount of animals in the same space, it's not just animals. You also have urine and manure and carcasses, because animals die in there and they are just confined. So these farms pollute water, because I'm gonna make you one question. How do you think they manage that amount of manure and urine? They use things I think called anaerobic lagunas. So they put everything in there, and it has to be very well managed, because if not, it starts polluting the air and it might filter to the underground. So we know that they're not well managed, and a lot of things are coming out of that. One of the things that comes out is methane, and another gas, which is nitrous oxide. So those come out and pollute the air. But when they go underground, they have these nitrogen compounds, which are harmful for people, and also phosphorus compounds, which make some algae overgrow, and then there are spaces of water that don't have enough oxygen. So they call them like dying water spaces or something like that. So that's water. And they also pollute air, because I told you about the nitrous oxide, but also they release not in those lagunas, but the animals, they release ammonia and methane and, you know, particles and a lot of things. And also when they are not able to manage those lagunas, what they do is spray, you know, whatever they have handy in places where in places that they have handy, and they spray all these manure and urine and things. Yeah. So these farms also contribute to climate change. We already know that they're the second contributor of greenhouse gases worldwide. So it's the second contributor. So it's interesting. And now I would like to ask, what do these animals eat? You know, because they rely in these agricultural practices that are very intensive. And they also, those agricultural practices also contribute to climate change, because they use these monocrops or monocultures, which wipe out biodiversity, and they use a lot of fossil fuels. And also, industrial farming and these intensive agricultural practices diminish fertility or the soil fertility, and changes its composition, promoting the release of more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So industrial farming is bad because of that. I'm not talking about how these animals are treated. I'm just talking about like environmental facts. But how they treat animals is another topic. So that's number 2. Number 3 is eating non-organic produce. And why is organic produce important? You know, conventional farming, not organic farming or holistic farming or regenerative farming, conventional farming uses artificial methods to promote the growth and the dominance of certain species of plants, and also to protect them from insects and pests. So they use these synthetic fertilizers that are lacking a lot of minerals, and that is disturbing the ecosystems and also diminishes the soil productivity because diminishes the microbial activity of the soil, and also changes the nutritional content or composition of plants, because the soils don't have those minerals that the plants need to grow and to be, healthy, and also they pass those minerals to us. Now they are devoid from them. And also conventional agricultural practices, they use a lot of pesticides and herbicides, and that provokes that plants, as they already have these pesticides and herbicides, they stop producing these phytocompounds because they don't need them to protect themselves, because they already have these pesticides and herbicides. And when we eat them, they are also devoid from these phytonutrients that are awesome to us, and they protect us. So that's number 3, eating non-organic produce. Number 4 is eating Gmos. Genetically modified organisms means that somebody took the gene of a bacteria and artificially inserted it in a plant, and that is to make them resistant to herbicides, or to make the plant have the ability to produce their own pesticide. But we have to remember that plants and insects, they adapt and evolve faster than humans do. So they say we're using GMOs because with that we are not using a lot of chemicals. And that might be true for now, but it takes around 1 or 2 decades to plants to adapt and develop resistance to herbicides, and less time for insects to develop immunity to pesticides. So this means that in less than 2 decades, these herbicides and pesticides will have to be more potent, because they're not going to be of any use doing all these changes, genetical changes in the plants. What we would need to do is to make more potent herbicides and pesticides. Also, GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are grown in monocultures or monocrops, which means that they plant just one crop, maybe 1 or 2 crops in vast extensions of land. And the thing is that they use and reuse the same soil year after year, depleting it. So those soils lost any microbial activity, which is crucial for getting back to the ground the carbon dioxide that it's outside in the atmosphere. So these soils are depleted from nutrients and minerals. And also, the most important thing, genetic modifications to these foods weren't made to improve the nutritional content in favor of humanity. They were made to improve the industry's profitability. It has nothing to do with humans' health. It has everything to do with making people rich. And number 5 is that we are eating also highly processed foods. And these foods are they depend on 2 main GMO products or crops, corn and soy. So 77% of these GMOs are used to feed these animals in this industrial farming, and 23% are used to make oils and sweeteners and processed food that has no nutrients and is very, very cheap. So the process of making these foods pollute air, water, soil, contributes to climate change, and because it releases some greenhouse gases. But at the end, those products reach our hands wrapped in plastic. And we right now know that plastic is one of the greatest environmental challenges of the 21st century. So those are the 5 things that, the 5 ways what we're eating is damaging the planet. One is that we're not making conscious decisions, we're just repeating because they're doing that, I'm doing this. Number 2 is that we have diets highly based in animal proteins, and to supply that increasing demand, we're doing a lot of harm to the planet. Number 3 is eating non-organic produce because of what they use, all the pesticides and fertilizers, and it contributes to soil depletion and to having less microbial activity in soils. Number 4 is eating GMOs. And I think the most important thing to remember is that they weren't made for us to improve their nutritional content. They were made to improve somebody's wallet. So that's a thing to remember. And insects and plants evolve and adapt faster than human beings. And another interesting thing about GMOs is that they say that they won't harm people, but it's interesting because if we take a human body and we randomly take out 10 cells, and I ask you, how many of those 10 cells are human cells? Many of you won't know, but I'm going to tell you just one. 9 are the microbiome. So we're 90% microbes and 10% human. So maybe GMOs don't harm human cells, but we know nothing about what harm can be done to those microbes that are 90% of our body. And number 5 is eating highly processed foods because they rely on these GMOs and also the plastic wrapping, which is a very, we can't deny, this is a crisis, an environmental crisis and challenge for the 21st century.